Sir, there is a very long meaning in part 2, sir, that is given of discrimination, but I will read only part 3, 1A, with your permission, sir, of this bill. It says, for the purposes of this act, a person discriminates against another person where the person, and there are some words in between, makes a distinction, creates an exclusion, or shows a preference, the intent or effect of which is to create a disadvantage, restriction, or detriment. The definition goes on, sir. But I think if we continue to try on the perspective of a victim, we can understand, sir, why this bill is so timely in Barbados. Because there are certain entrenched values, there are the ways in which we have done things that have become the status quo. The majority has determined what the standards and the norms will be, and that is all fine and good, provided that we do so in a way that is fair, in a way that does not exclude others who have the same rights and ought to have the same rights and privileges of others to be a part of the workplace. This bill, sir, speaks of making accommodations in situations where you have persons who might otherwise be discriminated against. Rather than discriminate against them, see how we might be able to accommodate them so that they may be included in a way that is fair. We talk about flexible work arrangements being available to persons who may very well need them. We talk about modifying furniture or equipment. We have many persons with disability who can do the job, who are willing to do the job, who are fit for the job, but it may simply mean that certain accommodations may be needed in the workplace in order to enable them to do the job. It also speaks of alternative work employment, sir. And being able to say, well, if for some reason a person could not do this particular job and something may have happened that has caused them no longer to be able to do so, that you are able then to provide them with alternatives. I think what this is saying, Mr. President, is that when it comes to who needs, in fact, to show honor in the workplace is not just the employee, in terms of them being the ones who are committed, the ones who are devoted, the ones who have to make sure they're there on time, the ones who have to make sure they're making all the accommodations for the employer. It has to be a two-way street, Mr. President. It is saying that the employer equally has to be able to ensure that the environment is created, that the employer too is committed, that the employer too is showing a level of tolerance and a level beyond tolerance, but not just giving people a sense that, yes, you're included because I am required to do so, but that you have a sense of belonging that goes deeper than simply being said, yes, you can be here too. Mr. President, this particular bill speaks about testing, interestingly enough, with regards, and it speaks, sir, about no testing of potential employees for medical conditions unless it's related to occupational qualification. It speaks in this situation, in this particular bill, Mr. President, for example, well, you understand that a pilot who might need to fly a plane might need to get the testing for their eyes, for their eyesight. But we cannot go around testing that pilot for other things that do not relate to their occupational qualification or to the safety of others necessarily. Sir, this bill also speaks about enforcement. It speaks about the fact that this bill would be enforced through the Chief Labor Officer, and that complaints made against an employer, that they can be made against an employer, as well as a fellow employee. It speaks about a process, Mr. President, whereby matters concerning discrimination must first be addressed at the level of the workplace. And where they have exhausted their options, then it is advanced to the Chief Labor Officer, where there is no resolution at that level. The Chief Labor Officer, sir, is expected to exercise their very best efforts to settle the matter through some conciliatory process. A complaint, however, may be referred to the tribunal through the Chief Labor Officer where a settlement is not achieved. And one, Mr. President, in this bill says that you cannot take forever to resolve these matters. It speaks about the fact that the Chief Labor Officer may refer the complaint to the tribunal where settlement is not achieved within 42 days of the presentation of the complaint. And that complaint, sir, there are many people who feel hard, find it difficult to forward a complaint because they believe they might be victimized. And so those complaints, Mr. President, may be filed by a single person. They may be filed by a third party, some person else who is filing, who has witnessed or seen, or by a trade union, or even by a representative group on behalf of the victim. And so there are options here where the victim does not have to be left alone, and where the victim does not necessarily have to feel as if they have nowhere else to turn, because they may do it on their own, or they may seek the support of others, or others may seek to step in and provide the support for this person who is the victim of discrimination. Mr. President, this bill also speaks and provides some direction and some guidelines with regards to the actions that a tribunal can take. It says that where a complaint is made to the tribunal and that complaint is upheld, that there are several different courses of actions that can be taken. Among them, that the offending party may very well have to pay some kind of compensation to the victim, or they may face prison. And for different types of offenses, the penalties are different, as one would certainly expect. And among a number of the different offenses that people can certainly be cited for, employers or entities may be cited for, relates to, for example, failure to maintain confidentiality of medical records, where that employee is feeling victimized. And I'm just giving you some examples, sir, of some of the areas in which there can be certain penalties applied to pay compensation, or where prison may very well be an option. And within the bill, sir, I will not go through them now. It specifies what some of those options are at this particular time. In addition, sir, the tribunal may very well insist and order that the offending party, as I said, pay compensation, implement certain policies or measures, or stop certain policies and measures, and indeed that they should also report to the tribunal on progress. So it is not a blind situation where there may be an order and then people are left to do as they like. It is a situation where there is an opportunity for them to continue to show that they're being accountable and they are indeed following whatever is the judgment and the order of the tribunal. Mr. President, the effective date. People say, well, when will this come into effect, sir? It will come into effect by proclamation, sir. Understand, too, that government and workplaces will need to get themselves ready. They will need to put the requisite administrative structures in place as detailed in the legislation. And they will also have to, and among some of those is that they will have to maintain a confidential register that is done by the Chief Labor Officer of those complaints. And the organizations must have workplace anti-discrimination policies in place. You will note, sir, that the guidelines for the content of such policies are outlined in the first schedule to this bill. Mr. President, this signals the direction in which we wish to move the rights of our labor force, the way in which we choose to respect, be inclusive, and ensure that diversity is represented and respected, that people believe that they are valued, know that they are valued, the way in which people are treated within the workplace, and basically the way in which we show our humanity as a country as it relates to how we treat to persons in the workplace. And it is with these few words, sir, that I beg to move that this bill be read a second time.
Recognize Rommel Springer, Senator Rommel Springer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I rise this afternoon to